Estoy ready. Welcome to the Sporty Friend. I'm Dany Bellamy, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the button and also click on the bell so you get notified every time there's a new episode, which is every week. The Women's Rugby World Cup is coming up, and it's not just another tournament, but it's turning out to be probably a turning point for the sport. Because let's be real, for years or forever, the common take has been that women's rugby doesn't get big crowds, it doesn't get any attention, not even sponsors, and can match the men's game in visibility because it's mainly a men's game. But that belief is starting to crumble because records are starting to be broken, stars are emerging, and brands are finally putting money into the women's rugby. And that's because it's getting more visibility. And I've been tracking the stats and the investments and the stories behind this World Cup, and I brought it to you. And the numbers are telling a very different story from the past. So in this video, we're gonna dive into why this tournament matters more than ever, who's leading the change, and what it could mean for the future of the sport. This Women's Rugby World Cup will be hosted in England. This is the home of the Red Roses and is the world #1, so it's the strongest team in the world. Last edition was in New Zealand 4 years ago in 2021, where New Zealand was champion. The opening match at Eden Park in Auckland, which is the biggest stadium in New Zealand, it held 40,000 fans. That was the record for women's rugby ever. Millions were watching globally, and this is setting new benchmarks for the sport. This year's tournament is expected to break those numbers, especially with England as hosts. Why it matters is because the more visibility they have and the bigger the platform, the more possibilities there are for girls to be inspired to play the sport. And the more girls play the sport, the more they get to have better self-esteem, team bonding, character building, and all these skills that sports give you. Like, you get to have other 10 sisters given by the sport compared to sports like tennis, that is an individual sport. Because according to World Rugby, the number of women and girls playing rugby has surpassed 2.7 million. This makes it one of the fastest growing sports in the world, just behind football. And bigger deals are starting to happen, like TikTok has invested heavily in women's rugby. They're already backing the Women's Six Nations, which is one tournament. And I just found the cutest and coolest sponsorship deal ever that I've seen before. So Barbie has unveiled its first ever partnership with a sports team in the UK with England's Red Roses. They look to inspire the next generation of female rugby players through grassroots initiatives, funding, merchandising, and storytelling. So they're looking into promoting rugby with young girls. To address this and spotlight the power of sport, Barbie and the Red Roses will be sharing stories of overcoming obstacles, celebrating individuality, pursuing passions, and all to inspire young girls across the UK and beyond. Barbie will also donate £20,000 to the RFU to increase the number of female players by increasing access to clubs and coaching across England. In addition, and this is the coolest part, I mean, they're all really cool, but if you get a cool merch, I'm sold. So in addition, Barbie has collaborated with the Red Roses on a licensed apparel range. They're releasing these t-shirts that say, "Strong girls play rugby." I mean, it is one of the cutest things that I've ever seen in the women's sports, because they're usually probably targeting other areas in the sport because there are so many areas of opportunity to improve. But I think this is great, especially because team sports like rugby or football, they really empower the girls. So I think this is a really cool sponsorship that is happening in the women's rugby, and they're releasing it in October, so just after the Women's Rugby World Cup. Female athletes are finally stepping into the spotlight, not just for their skills, but also for their personalities. I mean, in other episodes, we talk about, for example, Ilona Mayer from the US rugby player. She became a viral star during the Paris 2024 Olympics for speaking up about body image and showing the fun side of being an athlete that looks different from the stereotypical body of an athlete. So what we had before was that many women's rugby players had part-time jobs playing as a passion, not a profession. They had less media, no big marketing campaigns, less visibility, and kits or the jerseys or the uniforms often just downside men's versions like on the other sports like football. But now England's Red Roses, for example, became the first women's rugby team to be fully professional. So they're all professional now since 2019. Investment is also growing. Federations are starting to recognize the commercial value. So that equals more visibility, more broadcast time, and more money. Kits are designed specifically for women, so they now play with better fit, better comfort, and better performance. So women's rugby is at basically in a turning point, just like women's football was around 2019 due to the World Cup in France. So it's not just about the sport, it's about representation. Strong definitely looks different in rugby. You can see when you watch one of their matches. They have different body types, they have different styles, and all of them are celebrated on the pitch. And I think that is beautiful and worth sharing the story. So I think this tournament could be the one that takes rugby from being niche to mainstream in women's sports movement. All right, so the question will be, can women's rugby have the same boom as women's football in 2019? Is this Rugby World Cup gonna be opening doors for more leagues around the world, and it's not just gonna stay as a World Cup momentum? If you don't like rugby, I think this is the perfect time to catch up and watch the Women's Rugby World Cup, because let's be honest, World Cups are super fun. This comes from a person that has been working in World Cups since 2019. And even if my country is not represented during the tournament, it's just fun to see all these people united from all around the world celebrating and forgetting about the problems that are happening in the world. And that's the point of this channel, to give a platform and a voice to all these stories that are happening around women's sports that can inspire you even if you're not a sports fan. So I invite you to enjoy the rest of the Rugby World Cup. And until then, I'm Dany Bellamy, your sporty friend, and I'll see you next time.